I beg you, just make it quick." The rancher hesitated, then did the unthinkable. The winds of the frontier world carried dust and the faint scent of iron from the distant mountains. He had lived on this lonely planet for over a decade, raising genetically enhanced cattle that could survive the harsh terrain and thin air. Life was simple here, quiet, predictable. But as Caleb squinted at the horizon, something unusual caught his eye, a shimmer of light that didn't belong. It moved too fast to be a cloud, too bright to be a reflection. He frowned, gripping the wooden railing of the porch. His instincts, honed from years of dealing with unpredictable weather and wild animals, told him something was coming, and it wasn't normal. The ground trembled faintly beneath his boots. Then a sharp metallic screech split the air. Caleb froze. Dust and debris swirled around a strange object that crashed violently into his pasture. A plume of smoke rose, black and thick, carrying a chemical tang that made his eyes water. Without thinking, Caleb grabbed his jacket and ran toward the crash site. His heart pounded in his chest. As he got closer, he saw the ship, a small, twisted metal craft, unlike anything he had ever seen. Its hull shimmered like liquid metal, constantly changing shape but jagged and scarred from impact. Steam hissed from its ruptured panels, and the smell of burning ozone filled the air. Caleb stopped a few meters away, peering inside the wreckage. There, crumpled on the floor of the ship, were creatures unlike any humans had ever imagined. Their bodies were slender, covered in iridescent scales that flickered in the dying sunlight. They had multiple limbs, long and delicate, and eyes that glowed faintly like molten gold. Despite their alien appearance, something in their gaze made Caleb pause. There was fear, pain, a desperate plea for help. One of the beings, smaller and weaker than the others, turned its head toward him. A thin, trembling voice escaped, somehow carried in a language Caleb didn't understand, but he could feel the meaning clearly. "I beg you, just make it quick." Caleb froze. The words, though alien in sound, struck him with a force he couldn't explain. He felt a knot tighten in his stomach. What did they mean? Were they asking for mercy or for death? He stepped closer cautiously. "Hey, I'm not going to hurt you," he said, his voice rough from the dust and wind. The creatures blinked at him, the glow in their eyes fading as they gasped for air. The smallest one tried to stand but collapsed immediately, trembling violently. Caleb's heart ached. He had never seen anyone, human or alien, so helpless. He searched the wreckage for tools, anything that could help. His old utility kit, kept in the barn, might be enough. Rushing back to the house, he grabbed bandages, antiseptic, and some heavy gloves. Returning to the ship, he carefully pulled the weakest creature from the wreckage. Its body was frail, limbs shaking, and the golden eyes looked at him with an intensity that made his chest tighten. "I don't know what you are or what your world is," Caleb murmured, "but I'm not going to let you die here." The alien hissed softly, a sound that resembled wind through dry leaves. It didn't resist. Caleb carried it to the shade of a rock formation where he could tend to its injuries. He cleaned its wounds and applied a healing gel he had developed for his cattle. He worked in silence, speaking occasionally to calm it, though he doubted it understood his words. As he worked, the other creatures stirred, crawling out of the wreckage. One, larger and more intimidating, approached cautiously. Its limbs moved awkwardly on the uneven ground, but there was intelligence in its gaze. Caleb stepped back, hands raised in a gesture of peace. "We're not your enemy," he said. "I don't know what brought you here, but I can help." The larger creature paused, then made a strange clicking sound. The smaller one looked at Caleb again, eyes glowing faintly. Its voice returned, quieter this time, almost a whisper. "Survive if you can." Caleb's mind raced. These beings were clearly not here by choice. Whatever had brought them to Earthra had gone wrong. And now, their lives rested in his hands. Night fell quickly on the red plains, the temperature dropping sharply. Caleb built a small fire and placed the creatures in the warmth, covering them with blankets. They seemed to respond to the heat, curling slightly as if it soothed them. Caleb sat nearby, staring into the flames, wondering what he had gotten himself into. He thought about his life, about the quiet days spent tending cattle and repairing fences. Everything had been predictable, safe. And now here were these strangers, fragile, helpless, and begging him for something he didn't understand. A sudden noise snapped him out of his thoughts. From the horizon, another shimmer of light appeared, larger this time. Caleb's heart skipped a beat. The aliens stirred at the same moment, their glowing eyes widening in fear. He realized the incoming ship wasn't friendly. Whatever force had brought them here before was following. The creatures didn't speak this time, but Caleb felt the urgency. The smaller one weakly raised a limb toward the horizon, as if signaling a warning. Caleb's mind raced. He could try to fight, but what chance did he have against unknown technology? Or run? But the creatures couldn't survive long on their own. Finally, he made a decision. He grabbed the aliens carefully, one by one, and carried them back toward his ranch house. His muscles burned, but he ignored it. He barricaded the doors and windows with planks and old machinery, creating a makeshift safe zone. The creatures huddled together, trembling but alive. Hours passed in tense silence. Caleb kept watch by the fire, scanning the dark plains. Finally, the distant lights faded, leaving only the stars overhead. He let out a long breath he hadn't realized he was holding. Sitting back against the wall, Caleb looked at the creatures. They were still weak, but alive. He felt a strange mixture of relief and fear. Relief that they hadn't died. Fear of what would come next. For the first time in his life, Caleb felt the full weight of responsibility. These beings had trusted him, even begged him, and now he couldn't fail them. He didn't know what the future held, whether the world beyond Earthra would accept them, or if danger would return. But he knew one thing clearly: he would not turn away. As he drifted into a restless sleep near the fire, Caleb dreamed of stars and strange worlds, of alien skies and glowing eyes. And he knew, deep down, that his quiet life on Earthra had ended the moment the ship crashed, and that humanity, in its courage and resilience, was about to face a test unlike any other. The morning sun rose slowly over Earthra, painting the red plains in soft shades of gold and crimson. Caleb Moore had barely slept. He sat on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, thinking about the night before. The alien creatures were still weak, huddled together in the small barn he had prepared for them. Their breathing was uneven, almost fragile, but they were alive. That was what mattered for now. Caleb moved quietly, not wanting to disturb them. The smallest one, the one who had spoken with a trembling voice, opened its glowing eyes as he entered. They were still golden, warm in a way that reminded him of sunlight. It looked at him not with fear this time, but with curiosity. He knelt beside it, offering a small cup of water. The alien hesitated for a moment before touching it with a delicate limb. Caleb watched carefully. When it drank, relief washed over him. The creature was surviving. But Caleb's mind refused to stay calm. He had spent his life on Earthra in quiet isolation, managing his ranch, repairing fences, feeding cattle. He had never faced anything like this. These beings were completely foreign, and yet he felt a strange connection. There was intelligence in their eyes, a story, a desperation he could almost understand. He stepped outside for a breath of fresh air. The red plains stretched endlessly, and the wind carried the scent of iron and dust. In the distance, his herd grazed quietly, unaware of the extraordinary events unfolding nearby. Caleb's hands clenched into fists. "What do I do now?" he whispered to himself. Inside the barn, the other creatures were moving slightly. One of the larger ones had begun experimenting with its limbs, testing their strength. Caleb noticed strange patterns on their scales, almost like markings, though they shimmered and shifted as if alive. The markings seemed to respond to light, and when he moved closer, they pulsed faintly. Curiosity overcame caution. Caleb approached slowly, touching one of the patterns on the larger alien. The scale felt smooth, almost like polished stone and warm beneath his fingers. He pulled back immediately, realizing how dangerous it might be to interfere without understanding. But he could not stop wondering. What was this technology? How had it survived the crash? He spent the next few hours examining their ship from a safe distance. Most of it was mangled beyond repair, but parts of it, strange glowing panels and shifting metal plates, remained intact. Caleb's mind raced. He had repaired machines before, though nothing like this. Still, his hands itched to experiment, to learn, to understand. He realized, with a mixture of excitement and fear, that humans might be the only species clever enough to survive this technology and to use it responsibly. The thought made his chest tighten. He knew he was standing at a crossroads. Whatever he chose could change more than just his life. As Caleb worked, the smallest alien watched him with intense focus. Its glowing eyes seemed to follow every movement. At one point, it extended a limb toward him, as if offering a silent gesture. Caleb paused, unsure how to respond. He nodded gently, not knowing if it understood the gesture, and went back to examining the ship's panels. He discovered a small compartment, sealed with unfamiliar symbols. His heart pounded. Inside, he found a device that pulsed with soft golden light. It seemed to respond to his touch. When he placed his hand on it, a holographic map projected into the air above the device. Stars and planets appeared, arranged in a way Caleb had never seen before. Lines connected the planets like a web, and glowing points marked certain locations. He realized with growing awe that this technology was far beyond human knowledge. It could map entire star systems, track resources, and perhaps even control environmental conditions. Caleb felt a mix of fear and excitement. In the wrong hands, this could destroy worlds. In the right hands, it could save them. But Caleb also felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. The aliens had trusted him. They had begged him, "I beg you, just make it quick." What did they mean? Were they asking for death, for mercy, or for something else entirely? He couldn't risk misunderstanding. Hours passed as Caleb debated with himself. He could call for help, alert authorities, or try to learn from the technology himself. Each option carried risks. If he involved outsiders, the aliens might be captured, or worse. If he tried to handle it alone, he could fail, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Meanwhile, the creatures' condition improved slowly. They began communicating with each other in soft clicks and whispers. Caleb couldn't understand their language, but he could sense the urgency in their voices. It became clear that time was not on their side. Whatever had brought them to Earthra before was still a threat, waiting, and the aliens knew it. Caleb finally decided to speak directly to them, though he knew they might not understand his words. He knelt in front of the smallest alien, meeting its glowing eyes. "I don't know what you want from me," he said softly, "but I promise I'll try to understand. I won't hurt you." The alien's limb trembled slightly, as if acknowledging his words. It tilted its head, golden eyes flickering. Then it made a series of clicking sounds. Caleb watched carefully, realizing it was pointing toward the damaged part of the ship. He moved closer, and the alien extended its limb again, guiding him to a panel that had been partially crushed in the crash. Caleb hesitated. Touching it could be dangerous. But he remembered the trust in their eyes. Carefully, he manipulated the panel, adjusting levers and pressing buttons. The device hummed softly, and a small compartment opened, revealing more of the glowing technology inside. The aliens reacted immediately, a mixture of relief and hope in their movements. Caleb could see that they were trying to tell him something important. He didn't understand the words, but the urgency was clear. As the day turned to evening, Caleb stepped outside to think. The sky was a brilliant shade of crimson, the wind cool against his face. He realized that humanity had faced many challenges, but this was unlike anything he had imagined. The creature's technology was powerful, far beyond what humans had achieved. And yet here he was, a single rancher, holding the fate of these beings, and perhaps even his world in his hands. He thought about the frontier spirit that had brought humans to distant planets: curiosity, courage, and cleverness. These qualities had allowed them to survive impossible odds. Caleb knew that he had a choice. He could follow the path of fear, hiding or destroying what he didn't understand. Or he could embrace the unknown, learn, and perhaps prove that humans were capable of greatness even in the face of the unimaginable. That night, Caleb stayed by the fire again, watching the aliens sleep. He could feel their breathing, weak but steady, and he felt a strange connection growing. They were different, yet somehow like him, survivors stranded far from home, relying on instinct and trust. And then a thought struck him, sharp and clear. If humans were clever, adaptable, and brave, perhaps they could do more than survive. Perhaps they could help these beings, and in doing so, show the galaxy the best of what humanity could be. But first, he had to make a decision. He didn't know what the next day would bring. He didn't know if danger would return or if he would even survive the challenges ahead. But he knew one thing: he could not ignore the alien's plea. He could not turn away. Somewhere deep in his chest, Caleb felt the stirring of something larger than himself: responsibility, courage, hope. And for the first time, he understood that humanity's true strength was not just in tools or weapons, but in their ability to think, to feel, and to act when the impossible appeared. As he watched the fire flicker against the alien scales, Caleb whispered to himself, "I will not fail, not them, not us." Outside, the wind carried the faint glow of distant stars, and somewhere in the dark reaches of the galaxy, a presence stirred, watching, waiting, and perhaps judging. Caleb didn't know what would happen next, but he knew that tomorrow he would face the challenge with the courage that humans had always carried into the unknown. The morning on Earthra broke slowly, the red plains glowing under a soft sunrise. Caleb Moore stood outside his ranch house, hands resting on the wooden railing, staring at the horizon. The past few days had been strange, exhausting, and yet exhilarating. The aliens were still weak but alive. Their strange scales glimmered faintly in the morning light, and their golden eyes followed his every movement. Caleb knew that what he had done was unusual. No one had ever seen humans interact with beings like these before, aliens with technology far beyond comprehension, dependent on a single human for survival. His mind raced with questions. What had brought them to Earthra? Why had they begged him for mercy? And most importantly, what should he do next? Inside the barn, the aliens had begun to move more confidently. The smallest one, the one that had first spoken in a trembling voice, explored the space slowly. It touched the walls, the blankets, even Caleb's hands, as if testing the limits of this strange new environment. Caleb approached it carefully. "You're stronger today," he said softly. "I think you're going to be okay." The alien blinked, its golden eyes reflecting his words. Then it made a series of soft clicks. Caleb had learned to watch their gestures closely. These clicks, though foreign, seemed to communicate urgency. It was trying to tell him something, though he did not understand what. He spent the day observing them, taking careful notes. Their bodies were remarkable, adaptable, resilient, and intelligent. But it was the technology they carried that fascinated him most. The small device he had discovered in the wreckage still hummed softly, projecting its holographic map of the stars. Caleb had touched it before, and it had responded to him. That simple reaction had filled him with both awe and fear. Caleb knew that humans were clever. That had been proven time and again across history. Humans had survived harsh worlds, built incredible machines, and adapted to situations that seemed impossible. But this technology, this device, was something entirely different. It could reshape environments, control resources, perhaps even influence entire planets. He thought about the responsibility. If he tried to use it, the consequences could be enormous. A single mistake might destroy lives, alien or human. Yet if used wisely, it could solve problems humanity had been struggling with for centuries: food scarcity, harsh climates, even planetary colonization. The aliens stirred as he pondered. They seemed restless, moving toward the damaged ship. Caleb followed cautiously. One of the larger aliens extended a limb toward a control panel, as if signaling him to try something. He hesitated. Touching it could be dangerous, yet ignoring it might betray the trust they had placed in him. Finally, he made a decision. Carefully, he approached the panel and adjusted a lever. The device hummed louder, and a holographic display of the nearby terrain appeared. Caleb's eyes widened. It wasn't just a map, it showed resources, water sources, mineral deposits, even subtle shifts in the environment. The aliens clicked and chirped excitedly, clearly approving his actions. Caleb realized they were not asking him to destroy them. They wanted him to understand. They wanted humans to act. Hours passed as he experimented carefully, learning to control small functions. He discovered that he could stabilize the alien life support systems, adjust temperature controls, and even manipulate small environmental factors. Each success filled him with awe. Humans, with their ingenuity and courage, were proving capable of mastering something that no other species could handle. But Caleb also knew that the choice before him was more than just technical. He could continue cautiously, helping the aliens survive. Or he could push further, experimenting with the technology in ways that could benefit humanity, but at great risk. That night, Caleb sat by the fire, watching the aliens sleep. He thought about the history of his species. Humans had always faced the unknown with courage. They had explored oceans, skies, and finally, the stars. They had survived harsh worlds, outsmarted predators, and built civilizations from nothing. Humanity's strength had always been in their mind, their creativity, and their ability to make difficult choices. And now Caleb realized humanity was being tested again, not in battle or survival, but in wisdom and responsibility. He returned to the barn and approached the smallest alien. "I think I could try," he whispered. "I could see what this technology can do safely. I don't know if I can control it perfectly, but I can try." The alien looked at him, golden eyes glowing faintly. It made a soft, approving click. Caleb took this as a sign to proceed. He started with small adjustments, stabilizing the ship's power system, aligning energy flows, and observing the reactions of the aliens. Each success made him bolder. He began to see patterns, understanding that the device responded not just to touch, but to thought and intention. Humans, with their creativity, could influence it in ways the aliens could not. Yet, the danger remained. One wrong adjustment, one misjudged thought, and the consequences could be catastrophic. Caleb felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on him. Every time he touched the device, he reminded himself, think carefully, act wisely, protect them. Days passed in this careful routine. The aliens grew stronger, more confident, and began to communicate more clearly with Caleb through gestures and clicks. They seemed to recognize his intelligence, his problem-solving skills, and his moral judgment. Caleb realized something extraordinary. Humans had something no other species possessed in the galaxy: judgment combined with courage. One evening, as Caleb monitored the device, he noticed something alarming. A distant planet marked on the holographic map was showing signs of rapid environmental collapse. The aliens reacted instantly, making urgent gestures and clicks. Caleb understood. They were warning him that the technology, if misused elsewhere, could destroy worlds. The reality of the situation hit him hard. This was not just about survival anymore. It was about responsibility on a cosmic scale. Humanity, with its intelligence and resilience, had the potential to act as a force for good, or, if reckless, a force for destruction. Caleb took a deep breath. He would not shy away. He would act. but he would do so with care, respect, and the wisdom humans had cultivated over millennia. He had a plan forming in his mind: to learn from the aliens, stabilize their technology, and use it to help humanity expand safely, without causing harm. He worked late into the night, adjusting controls, observing results, and recording everything meticulously. The aliens watched, fascinated. Caleb realized that they were not just trusting him, they were depending on him. The phrase from their first plea echoed in his mind: "I beg you, just make it quick." He finally understood its meaning. It was not a request for death. It was a plea for action, for courage, for a choice that only a human could make. The aliens had arrived at Earthra not to be destroyed, but to find someone capable of wisdom and creativity. And Caleb, a simple rancher, had been that someone. By the time dawn broke, Caleb had achieved something remarkable. The aliens' life systems were fully stabilized. The damaged ship's core was functioning again. And most importantly, he had begun to unlock small capabilities of their technology safely. The sense of accomplishment was exhilarating, but he knew it was only the beginning. He stepped outside to watch the sunrise, golden light spilling across the plains. Caleb felt a quiet pride in what humans could achieve. The strength of humanity was not in brute force or numbers. It was in courage, judgment, and the ability to act wisely when the impossible appeared. And yet, even as he celebrated this small victory, Caleb knew the real challenge was still ahead. He would have to make choices that affected more than just his ranch, more than just the aliens before him. His actions could ripple across the galaxy. But for the first time, he also felt hope. Humanity could rise to this challenge. Humans had faced the unknown countless times and had survived. Caleb believed now that they could do so again, this time with wisdom and care, protecting those who could not protect themselves. He returned to the barn, watching the aliens move with more strength and confidence. He smiled faintly. The future was uncertain, dangerous, and extraordinary. But Caleb Moore, simple rancher of Earthra, had made a choice. A choice to act, to learn, to protect, and to prove that humans could handle the impossible. And somewhere deep in the cosmos, the universe itself seemed to take notice, as if acknowledging that humans, with their courage and ingenuity, were ready for the challenges that lay beyond the stars. The red plains of Earthra stretched endlessly under the high sun, shimmering like copper in the heat. Caleb Moore stood near the barn, his eyes scanning the horizon. The aliens moved among the livestock, their golden eyes bright, their bodies stronger and steadier than before. The ranch had never seemed so alive, so full of purpose. Days of careful experimentation had turned into weeks. Caleb had learned to manipulate the alien technology in small, safe ways. He could stabilize environmental systems, control minor energy flows, and even enhance the growth of his livestock. The results were astonishing. His herd was healthier, stronger, and more resilient than ever before. The aliens observed silently at first, then with cautious excitement. They had begun to communicate more clearly through gestures, clicks, and patterns of glowing light on their scales. Caleb realized they were teaching him, guiding him to understand the principles behind their technology. They were not just asking for help, they were forming a partnership. Caleb knew the moment of transformation had arrived. Humanity had always thrived on learning, on adapting, on exploring. And now, he was living proof that humans could handle the unimaginable. He had spent long hours alone with the aliens, mapping the terrain, adjusting the environment, and recording every detail. He had become fluent in observing the patterns of their behavior and predicting the results of his actions. The technology, once alien and intimidating, had become a tool of progress in his hands. One afternoon, as Caleb walked near the edge of the pasture, he noticed a distant glimmer on the horizon. Unlike before, this light did not seem threatening. It moved slowly, almost cautiously, as if observing him. Caleb tensed. then realized it was a human ship, a research vessel sent from the nearest colony after strange energy readings had been detected near his location. The ship landed with careful precision. Scientists, explorers, and engineers stepped out, their eyes wide with awe at the sight of Caleb's ranch. The aliens remained still, their bodies tense but their eyes curious. Caleb approached the newcomers. "It's safe," he said. "They won't hurt you, but you must trust me." The humans hesitated. They had never seen anything like the aliens before. Their forms, their scales, the faint glow of their bodies. It was beyond any recorded encounter. Yet Caleb's calm demeanor and the peaceful behavior of the aliens reassured them. Over the following days, the research team began studying the alien technology under Caleb's guidance. He taught them how to stabilize systems, how to interact safely with the device, and most importantly, how to respect the aliens' intelligence and autonomy. It was clear that humans were learning quickly. Their ingenuity, combined with Caleb's careful instruction, allowed them to achieve results that the aliens themselves had struggled with. Small adjustments to energy flows, environmental controls, and resource allocation produced incredible outcomes. Crops grew faster, water sources were purified, and even the harsh earthern climate became easier to endure. The aliens observed in silence, then began to respond in ways that showed approval. Caleb noticed patterns in their glowing scales that seemed almost like applause. He realized the aliens recognized the value of human creativity and problem-solving. Word of the ranch's success spread rapidly through the colony network. Explorers, traders, and scientists came from neighboring planets to witness the extraordinary progress. They were amazed at how humans, with their ingenuity and care, had mastered alien technology that had been far beyond understanding. Caleb watched with quiet pride. Humanity had always adapted to the unknown, and now the galaxy was taking notice. The ranch was no longer just a home or a farm. It had become a symbol of human potential. But not all attention was welcome. A distant faction, known for exploiting advanced technology for personal gain, had learned of the alien ship. They were curious, calculating, and dangerous. Caleb knew that the next challenge would test not only his skills but humanity's moral compass. He spent long hours preparing. The aliens helped, adjusting their technology to create protective fields and subtle defenses around the ranch. Caleb worked tirelessly, teaching humans how to collaborate with alien intelligence to achieve safety without violence. It was a delicate balance, power without harm, innovation without recklessness. One evening, as the twin moons of Earth arose, Caleb stood near the barn with the smallest alien. Its golden eyes reflected the soft moonlight, and for a moment, Caleb saw something he had not expected: gratitude. He realized that trust had been earned, and that humans had proven capable of more than survival. They could be partners, friends, and protectors. The research team had also made progress. They discovered that the device could do more than stabilize local systems. It could enhance planetary ecosystems, purify water on a large scale, and even subtly influence weather patterns to prevent disasters. All of this was done without force or aggression, through intelligence, care, and observation. Caleb felt a surge of hope. Humanity had been given a chance to prove itself on a cosmic scale. They were no longer just survivors. They were innovators, collaborators, and guardians. Days turned into weeks. Caleb and the aliens continued to work with the humans, expanding their knowledge and refining the technology. The ranch flourished. Crops thrived, livestock multiplied, and the once barren land became a vibrant, thriving ecosystem. The aliens, once weak and helpless, moved freely and confidently, interacting with the humans and even assisting in daily tasks. Caleb knew that this transformation was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, full of unknown worlds and civilizations. But now humans had a chance to expand responsibly, using intelligence and morality as their guides. One morning, a young scientist approached Caleb. "We've analyzed the technology," she said, excitement in her voice. "It's incredible. Humans could use this to terraform planets, improve ecosystems, even prevent famine. But it requires judgment, care, and collaboration. And you've proven that's possible," Caleb nodded. "Humans have always faced challenges. We adapt, we learn, we survive. But now we can do more than survive. We can help others survive, too." The aliens observed silently, then made soft clicks and gestures. Caleb understood them. They were acknowledging the success of the partnership. They had come to Earth seeking help, and now they had found it, not just in one human, but in an entire species capable of courage, wisdom, and creativity. As the weeks passed, Caleb saw the ranch transform further. The land became fertile, water flowed freely, and the once lonely plains were alive with activity. Humans and aliens worked side by side, demonstrating that cooperation and understanding could achieve remarkable results. Caleb stood atop a small hill overlooking the ranch. The sun set behind the distant mountains, casting long shadows across the vibrant land. He felt a deep sense of accomplishment. Humanity had faced the unknown and risen to the challenge. They had proven that intelligence, morality, and courage could overcome even the most incomprehensible obstacles. But Caleb also knew that the future held new challenges. Other civilizations, both friendly and hostile, might take notice of their success. The technology, while powerful, was a responsibility, not a weapon. Humans would need to continue learning, growing, and acting wisely. Yet for now, Caleb allowed himself a moment of quiet pride. The ranch was thriving. The aliens were safe and strong. Humanity had demonstrated its potential. And in the vastness of the galaxy, a new chapter was beginning. One in which humans, guided by intelligence and morality, could shape the future without fear. As night fell, the twin moons casting silver light over the plains, Caleb whispered to the stars, "We've only just begun, but we will rise. We will prove that humans are more than survivors. We are creators, protectors, and partners. And together, we can face whatever comes next." Somewhere in the cosmos, the universe itself seemed to pause, as if recognizing that humans had taken the first steps toward a future filled with hope, courage, and extraordinary possibility. Years had passed since the alien ship crash-landed on Caleb Moore's ranch in the red plains of Earthra. The once isolated ranch was now a thriving hub of activity, a shining example of what humanity could achieve when courage, intelligence, and morality guided their actions. Caleb stood atop a hill overlooking the land, his eyes taking in the sweeping fields, vibrant with green crops, flowing streams, and healthy livestock. The aliens, now fully recovered, moved among humans freely, assisting in maintaining the systems that had transformed the harsh planet into a livable paradise. Their shimmering scales caught the sunlight, reflecting gold and silver light across the plains. It was a sight Caleb would never tire of. The story of the crash, the plea for mercy, and the daring choice he had made spread across colonies and worlds. Humans had faced an impossible challenge, not with weapons, but with thought, care, and courage. The galaxy had begun to notice the potential of humanity, not as conquerors, but as creators and collaborators. Caleb had aged, his hair graying at the temples, his hands lined with years of labor. Yet there was a calm confidence in his posture, a quiet pride in his eyes. He remembered the fear he had felt on the day the ship had fallen from the sky, the uncertainty, the moral weight of deciding whether to act or hesitate. And now, looking out over the transformed land, he knew that humanity had risen to that challenge with brilliance. The aliens approached him, moving with grace and strength. The smallest one, the first to speak to him with trembling words, stopped at his side. Its golden eyes regarded him, and in a series of clicks and soft gestures, it expressed what Caleb intuitively understood: gratitude. "You saved us," he said quietly, kneeling to meet its gaze. "But it wasn't just me. Humans, we've learned together." The alien extended a delicate limb, touching his hand gently. Caleb felt a warmth that was almost like understanding passing between them. They had come to Earthra seeking survival, and now they had found trust, friendship, and a partner in humanity. The research and exploration teams that had arrived years ago now worked alongside the ranch. They studied the alien technology, adapted it responsibly, and shared their findings with other colonies. They had discovered ways to improve ecosystems, purify water, and subtly adjust climates without causing harm. Humanity had unlocked a new era of innovation, guided by intelligence, morality, and collaboration. Caleb walked among the teams, observing young humans learning from aliens, adjusting the devices with precision and care. Children, both human and alien, played together under the protective energy fields, learning cooperation and respect. The ranch had become more than a home. It was a living symbol of humanity's potential. Yet Caleb knew the galaxy was vast, and challenges still awaited. There were other civilizations, some friendly, some wary, some hostile, who would observe the success of humans and the alien partnership. But Caleb had faith in his species. Humans had always adapted, learned, and risen to challenges. Now, with wisdom and care, they could meet the future head-on. One evening, as the twin moons of Earthra rose over the plains, Caleb stood with the aliens and the research team. They watched the sky together, noting the distant stars and imagining the worlds that might benefit from the knowledge they had gained. A young scientist spoke, her eyes wide with excitement. "The technology, with careful use, we could terraform entire worlds, prevent famine, and restore dying ecosystems, all without harming anyone. Humanity could do so much," Caleb nodded. "Yes. But we must remember what brought us here: the choice to act wisely, the courage to care, and the responsibility to respect life. That is what makes humans capable of greatness." The aliens responded with a soft chorus of clicks, their glowing patterns flickering like constellations. Caleb understood them perfectly. They recognized that humans had proven themselves worthy not just of surviving, but of becoming true partners in shaping the galaxy. Years continued to pass. Earthra became a model for other worlds. Humans used the alien technology responsibly, enhancing planetary environments, supporting colonization efforts, and solving problems that had long seemed insurmountable. The ranch remained the heart of this transformation, a place where humans and aliens worked side by side, learning from each other and building a future filled with hope. Caleb spent his days teaching, guiding, and observing. He watched as humans discovered new ways to collaborate, creating solutions that combined ingenuity, moral judgment, and care. Each small success reinforced a larger truth: humans were more than survivors. They were creators, protectors, and innovators. One day, Caleb climbed the hill overlooking the ranch, as he had done so many times before. He looked out over the thriving land, the flowing rivers, and the vibrant fields. He thought of the day the alien ship had crashed, the fear he had felt, and the choice he had made. That moment had defined not just his life, but the path of humanity. He smiled faintly. Humanity had risen to the challenge, proving that courage, wisdom, and morality could turn a moment of hesitation into a legacy that would echo across the galaxy. As night fell, the twin moons cast silver light across the plains. Caleb looked up at the stars, imagining the worlds that would benefit from humanity's ingenuity. The aliens beside him flickered softly, their scales reflecting the moonlight. Caleb felt a deep sense of peace. They had trusted him, and he had honored that trust. Together, humans and aliens had created something extraordinary. Somewhere in the vast expanse of space, distant civilizations observed the transformation of Earthra. The message was clear. Humanity was not to be underestimated. They were clever, courageous, and capable of great compassion. And in the years to come, those qualities would carry humans far beyond the red plains of Earthra, shaping the galaxy in ways no one had imagined. Caleb turned to the aliens and the humans around him. "We have shown what we can do," he said quietly. "But remember this, it's not just about what we can create or control. It's about how we choose to act, how we protect those who cannot protect themselves, and how we use our gifts wisely. That is our true strength." The aliens responded with gentle clicks, acknowledging his words. The humans nodded, understanding the lesson that had been taught through courage, intelligence, and choice. Years later, when Caleb's hair was white and his hands were lined with age, he still walked the plains of Earthra. The ranch had grown into a thriving community, a place where knowledge, courage, and collaboration were celebrated. Humans had expanded to other planets, always guided by the principles Caleb had lived by: intelligence, morality, and respect for life. Caleb often sat quietly, watching young humans and aliens work together, their laughter echoing across the plains. He knew that the future was full of unknown challenges, but he also knew that humanity would face them with the courage and wisdom that had carried them from their earliest days on distant worlds. And sometimes, in the quiet hours of the night, he thought of the words spoken by the smallest alien the day it first crashed on his land. "I beg you, just make it quick." He had hesitated, then acted. That choice had changed not only his life but the course of humanity itself. And in the vastness of space, across countless stars and worlds, humans had proven their worth, not through violence, but through intelligence, courage, and compassion. Caleb smiled, knowing that humanity's story was just beginning. The red plains of Earthra were no longer lonely. They were alive with possibility, and the legacy of one simple rancher's choice would continue to inspire generations across the galaxy. The stars shone brightly above, silent witnesses to the triumph of a species that had faced the unknown, and had risen to meet it with brilliance, courage, and heart.